Thank you all for joining us here this morning. I am Assemblymember Jen Lunsford, and I am here today with leaders from across the county and the state to talk about the terrible, deadly fentanyl epidemic that's ravaging our youth and our streets. I'm joined today by Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, by Pittsford parents Kate and Dave Gibbons, by Wade Norwood, Corey Brown, Keith Smith from the RPD, City Council person Mary Lupian,
Pastor Julius Clay, New Bethel CME Church.
Everyone get that one? So thank you all. This is a very challenging topic because fentanyl has become the #1 healthcare epidemic that our country is dealing with. Fentanyl overdose deaths are the fastest growing cause of death among youth ages 14 to 23. Unfortunately, Paige Gibbons, the daughter of Kate and Dave Gibbons, suffered from a fentanyl overdose and passed away last year. We are doing everything we can from a healthcare perspective, from a societal perspective, and from a law enforcement perspective to try to stop this scourge. When we look at the drug overdoses on a whole, fentanyl causes more overdose deaths than heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and prescription drugs combined. This is the epidemic of our times, and we need to take an all-hands approach to making sure we don't have any more Paige Gibbons, that we can protect our kids, and that we can keep our streets safe. I'd like to take a moment now to introduce Senator Gillibrand, who is here today to talk about her bipartisan FEND bill that is going to help us address this terrible issue. Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Assemblywoman, for your leadership on this in the state. We appreciate your passion and determination to eradicate this horrific scourge. I want to recognize the dignitaries that are here with us, our Deputy Rochester Police Chief, Elena Correa, Keith Stith, Deputy Chief, Rochester Police Department, Mary Lupian, our City Council, VP East District, Corey Brown, our Monroe County Undersheriff, Pastor Clay, Wade Norwood, and the other people that are here today to talk about this issue. I want to thank each one of you for being here to call out. I especially want to thank Kate and Dave Gibbons. Her children are the same age as my children. This can happen to any of them, and that is the problem. Paige's heartbreaking story echoes far too many stories across our country and across our state. 70,601 Americans died from overdoses involving synthetic opioids in 2021. That's 1.5 times as many people as have died in car crashes. Here in Monroe County, there have already been 145 fatal suspected opioid overdoses just this year. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is up to 50 times stronger than heroin and 100 times stronger than morphine. It's a prescription drug used to treat patients in severe pain, but it's also made and used illegally. Because fentanyl produces a cheaper high, some drug dealers are mixing it with drugs like cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, meth. Sadly, drug users are often not aware that the drugs they are taking are laced with fentanyl, leading to potential overdoses. During the pandemic, fentanyl overdose deaths were on the rise as isolation and despair drove more people toward drug use. And while we've been expanding harm reduction tactics in our state, the reality is that this will continue to be a problem so long as drug dealers are bringing dangerous fentanyl into our communities. Last year, the DEA seized enough fentanyl to supply a lethal dose to every American, or 379 million doses. And they have said that the majority of illegal fentanyl entering the U.S. is made with Chinese chemical supplies and manufactured in Mexico. Frankly, we need to do more to keep this dangerous drug out of the United States. So I'm pushing for a bipartisan bill that would allow government agencies to more effectively crack down on illegal drug trafficking by targeting the deadly flow at its source. The Fend Off Fentanyl Act would help agencies disrupt illicit opioid supply chains and penalize those trafficking this drug. More specifically, it would declare that the international trafficking of fentanyl is a national emergency and requires President Biden to sanction key members of transnational criminal organizations. It would also make it easier to enforce the sanctions and hold drug traffickers accountable. And it would require the Treasury Department to prioritize cracking down on fentanyl-related suspicious transactions. No one deserves to die because of a drug they do not even know they are taking. Every life lost is a tragedy. We need to do everything in our power to prevent these needless deaths and get fentanyl off our streets. I want to thank Kate and her husband and everyone here for fighting this fight. The lives of far too many New Yorkers and people suffering from addiction depend on it. I'd now like to bring up our last speaker, Kate Gibbons.
Our daughter, Paige, passed away in November, completely unexpectedly, and she and her friend had consumed what they thought was Percocet, illegally purchased. It later was determined that what Paige consumed was 100% fentanyl. She didn't stand a chance. So we wanted to come support Senator Gillibrand's bill, support her efforts to fight what took our daughter. The next step for everyone else out there is to start looking into mental health, finding more resources, starting earlier so that what happens in the lives of our children that make them seek out drugs as a solution can just be stopped in its place, and that we never get to that point where our children are out there buying drugs to deal with how they're feeling. Hopefully we can, as a society, as a community, start recognizing the issue before us, things that are facing our kids, and get them help long, long, long before something like this happens to anyone else's child. We appreciate what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill. We want to prevent another Paige, and there's millions of young teenagers out there, and the last 9 months have been the most horrific 9 months of our lives, dealing with something we didn't even know existed. So we're out there with the support of our local community, trying to bring education and prevention, but this bill will do a long thing. Paige thought she was taking Percocet, and she had no chance. Never woke up in the middle of the night. She was at a sleepover at a girl's house. An innocent night went horrific. So we appreciate coming to Rochester and bringing this bill forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We're happy to take any on-topic questions from any press. Go ahead.
Senator, what is your overall message to the families of victims, right? Maybe in the same situation, hoping, right, for legislation like this?
Well, I would just reiterate what was just said, that our children have suffered a lot, especially the last 3 years of COVID. There's enormous amounts of mental health pressure on them. They don't have all the tools they need to solve those challenges. So we need to increase our funding for mental health. We need more wellness investments. We need more after-school programming. We need more opportunities for kids to thrive. And we need to stop these illicit drugs from coming across our borders. They are filtering in from China and Mexico, and we have to take this flood of these deadly drugs seriously. So educating our kids, educating our communities, and fighting back with law enforcement against these drug cartels.